Good evening, guys. Happy Wednesday to all of your sunshiny faces. So I don't have a Meyer haul for you guys today. Told you guys how we had a lot of stuff kind of happen yesterday and come up and things like that. I think everybody's just sort of catching up a little bit like today. I don't know if that's the right word, but just kind of recuperating, I guess is maybe a better word. But like today I didn't end up getting a whole ton of stuff done. I didn't end up working on my grocery list, which I probably should have done. There's also lots of errands and things like that we had to run, and like the same thing too, like tomorrow we've got some things that we also have to do, and you know, like I said, just a handful of things that have to get done, but I don't have any grocery shopping planned as of right now. So we might go to Jewel possibly on Thursday, maybe Tony's and Caputo's, or maybe even do that tomorrow. I don't know. Like I said, there's some stuff that has to get done anyways. I don't know what and when I will have anything for you guys. So I didn't end up getting to a whole ton of stuff, and again, my grocery lists aren't even done, but yeah, it was another hot one out today too, which is it not as bad as yesterday though. I think the high might have been like 84 compared to like the last 2-3 days where it's been like 94 maybe or something like that, which is just, oh my goodness, so hot. And then the humidity too, like yesterday, because it was raining, and it was raining like all night long, and then today it still kind of felt humid. And my dad even said too, he was like, oh, today feels hotter than it did yesterday. And I was like, really? I was like, not hotter than it did, but he was just like, oh, today's really hot. And I was expecting him to kind of be like, oh, it feels a little bit cooler than it did yesterday at least, which I think that on Friday it is supposed to be cooler, like at least by football game time, which is, oh goodness guys, I'm kind of a little bit nervous for, maybe just because like you know, like that's the first game of the season, and just like I felt a little bit better, like well adjusted, I guess, considering that we just had the scrimmage last week and everything like that. So it was like I was kind of back into like that, not routine, but like, you know, like just remembering how the camera works, like all that kind of stuff, even though again I just did it over the summer recently, but like remembering, like, you know, all this stuff, and just knowing and kind of having that same atmosphere, I think is the right word, for, you know, like the football game, and for the you know, like the camera, you know, stuff and things like that, what I need to do and everything. But for me it felt kind of just like normal, I guess. Like, you know, I got used to the actual setting and the atmosphere versus like over the summer when they just had the scrimmages, like that weren't like this formal scrimmage they had last Thursday, versus the scrimmages that they had over the summer, which were more like they had like 2 scrimmages going on at the same time and stuff like that. And again, it was just kind of, I don't know, like different, you know, like again, the atmosphere, there were no fans really that were there, and you know, like that kind of stuff. So the fact that we, you know, like we were back into what felt like a normal football game, like Friday night football game kind of atmosphere this last Friday, and we, you know, again too, like I was telling you guys, it was like treated like a real game. That's what kind of made me feel like, okay, like, you know, I'm back into that groove kind of thing. And so the other thing that I feel like is making me not quite as nervous for this Friday's football game is they're playing a team that's not that great. So the thing that I kind of like about that is either a game that they're getting like blown out in, or a game that they're like, you know, like blowing the other team out in, is that you know, it's not something that has to be super scrutinized. And like if I'm like, oh my goodness, like I screwed something up on the camera or whatever, or like I didn't catch a play properly, or you know, something like that, it's not like that bad, just because the, you know, like it's going really bad either way, like, you know. So it wasn't like, oh, we really needed that play so that we can figure out how to diagnose like this thing that's going on in the game, like either live during while it's happening, or in, you know, like when they're going over film in the future, so they can be like, let's make sure this doesn't happen again, like, you know, linebackers were out of position, or the quarterback overthrew this guy when you find out that the guy actually really ran a wrong route, or, you know, something like that. You know, like, so you can kind of like diagnose that either in real time in the game or post game when you're looking at film afterwards. For me, when I'm like, you know, when it's a really close game, then obviously I'm like, I have to be on point, you know, with everything that I'm doing, versus where it's a big blowout game, it's like, okay, there's a little less pressure, you know, because the situation isn't as, you know, like the game isn't as close, so the situation isn't as, you know, like important if it's like, oh my goodness, I accidentally missed this, or, you know, I didn't follow this play perfectly or whatever. Like, so hopefully it's like that, and, you know, it's a really big margin of difference, and, you know, like that kind of stuff, so it's a little less pressureful. Whereas I think one of the early games last year, I don't know if it was like the second home game or something like that that we had, but it was such a close game, and I was like so nervous because I was like, oh my goodness, I have to make sure that I'm doing a really good job. And I think it might have been the one that went into overtime, if they went into overtime, or we won at the very end of the game or something like that. But I just remember being like, okay, I have to make sure that I'm doing everything right and like everything's perfect because this is such a close game. And, you know, like I felt just as much pressure, I feel like, as like the coaches and the players were feeling, you know, kind of just because of what my job is, but then also too just because of the intensity. Like, it's a different type of intensity, I feel like, when you're down on the field, even though I sit in the end zone away from like everybody else, you know, like I am in like the back of the end zone, like, you know, again, coaches are over on the sidelines and the players, and they're on the field and stuff like that. And, you know, unless they're on my end zone side, they're like, you know, not very close to me or whatever. But like, because of just the atmosphere of being on the field versus in the stands as a fan, like that's very different. So like I can feel that kind of pressure being on the field. You know, like that the atmosphere is very different, like being down there. Like I said, I feel like I feed off of that, you know, a little bit differently, and like the intensity of the games and stuff like that. And the other thing is too, is that a lot of times, years past, we hadn't been very competitive, so it was also kind of like, I mean, and I only started doing it last year when we were competitive, but in years prior when we weren't, it was like that intensity I don't feel like was probably really there. But now that we have been, I'm like, I have to make sure that I'm, you know, really on point. Like, we're not going to be getting blown out where they're like, ah, you know, we could just turn the cameras off at this point, or, you know, the score is like 50-7 or something like that, you know, like they're not really needing like the camera or anything like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the you know, like the expectations change when the atmosphere kind of changes, you know, like obviously I want to do a good job all the time, but I'm hoping that when it's more of a blowout, it's a little bit, there's less pressure, you know, and so if we, you know, get like a nice lead or something like that, and I don't have to worry too much about like being perfectly on my game or anything like that on Friday. It's just like, in general though, it's just, it's more relaxed. Like when you're a fan and you can be like, oh, my team's up by 20 points or whatever, right? Like whatever sport you're watching or something like that, you can just be like, wow, they have a really nice lead. Like you can kind of relax more, right? It's the same thing too when you're a coach or you're a player, or, you know, like you're, you know, again, working on staff, whatever, you know, kind of stuff that is, you know, whatever, however that looks like. So it's just a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere. And obviously, like I said, players still have to play in order to maintain that, you know, lead that they have or whatever, and I still have the job that I have to do, but it's just the stress is a little bit less. Like, you know, you can afford to maybe make a mistake here or there, like a player can, and it not cost you the whole game, you know. So I can be like, oh, whoops, I, you know, again, something, I didn't catch something, or, you know, something went wrong or whatever, you know, with the camera, and it doesn't have to be like, oh my goodness, like, and they need the camera so bad because, you know, like they can't see things or whatever it is. So yeah, it's, you know, like I said, a little bit nicer when you don't have to worry about, you know, like the score. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we get a really nice lead, and then it's a little bit more smooth sailing, you know, with the football game. So I believe that that's who we're supposed to be playing this first week, which will be nice to, you know, hopefully they might be able to get the win. You know, first game of the season would be pretty nice too. So anyways, I'm going to take a shower and get to bed, but I will see you guys in tomorrow's vlog. If you guys did enjoy today's, make sure you guys give a big old thumbs up. If you guys are new, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, and I'll see all of your sunshiny faces tomorrow. So bye guys.